Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Get Brand's Rants. I am having a lot of trouble putting myself together right now because there's a lot happening, and I feel some kind of way about a lot of it, and I keep putting off making this video, and I really shouldn't. I just need to do it. So bear with me. As my name entails, it's going to be a lot of ranting, and this is probably going to go long. So sorry. Um, there's there's a lot of protesting going on, and I always think there should be more protests. That's good. We are at I'm going to say a vicious crossroads as a country right now, and I'm I'm feeling some kind of way in a whole bunch of different directions. So so first of all, just with regard to um, whenever we're talking about riots, and I've spent a lot of time on social media, kind of talking about, like, in some cases people are like, don't call it a riot, it's a protest, and it's like, well, yes, all of these are protests. Some of the protests have devolved to riots, but that doesn't mean that they're still not riots. But the fact that they're riots does not necessarily mean that it's not justified. And so that's kind of my first thing. Riots are some. Again, go back to the MLK quote. A riot is the language of the unheard. Just understand a riot as, like, nobody plans a riot. It's a sociological phenomenon whenever people have a tremendous number of needs and none of them are being addressed, and they have no means of redress. Think about where black people are as a community in this country with regard to that. That officer was not going to get charged for George Floyd's death outside of these demonstrations. It was only the demonstrations that caused him to get charged in the first place. And even then, come on, think about it. With riots happening, they put out a third-degree manslaughter charge. Manslaughter is accidental death. This was no accident. Sure, maybe first degree would be really hard to prove that he, went out, stalked the guy, and premeditatively, killed him. But spending 9 minutes kneeling on a person's neck is absolutely second-degree murder. That's one. Number two is this. This isn't about. Yes, there's a certain amount that it's about George Floyd. This isn't about that, and none of this is. And you can read the litany of names of black people who have very, very recently been murdered. And not just by police. Police, yes. Police are a big problem, and especially, again, when we talk about militarization of police. And, that's why we have nationwide police brutality protests, and where's all of the filming and what's all the footage showing? Are there people, throwing bricks or throwing Molotov cocktails or lighting stuff on fire? Yes, but you're not seeing most of that. Most of that, what you're seeing when it's being filmed, when you're getting these videos, and it's just, we've been watching it, and you can't not be angry. There's there's so much where it is like the police versus the people, and that it's such a problem. Um, and I've said in previous videos, and I'm going to say again, every police officer is a human being, and every police officer, you know, it's, I don't want to say not all police, because when the system of policing is what it is all police. Um, does that mean that I think every person who's ever donned a police uniform is a terrible person? And look, you could see that there's police who are joining in these demonstrations, and Flint, Michigan, I think, where they celebrate those. And this is a thing that, when Black Lives Matter first formed as an organization, and I don't think most people realize this, they came up with like a very thorough list of things that they wanted to see happen. And I read through it, and there was not a single point that I thought was even remotely unreasonable. And there's police precincts and districts throughout the country who have been working with Black Lives Matter in order to try to change their systems and make things better. And that needs to be celebrated. But the vast majority of police systems aren't doing that. The majority of police systems look at Black Lives Matter as a threat. And they're point blank, eventually you have to call out evil as evil. Evil is evil. And, oh, but Brant, you're an atheist. Don't you not believe in evil? Oh, yes, I do. But Brant, shouldn't you have a plural? No. So, all right, that was kind of my first section, I guess. The second point I want to make is with regard to white supremacists' role in these demonstrations. And here's the thing, maybe it's not all necessarily white supremacists, although I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And I don't think, there's a lot of coordination of white supremacist groups. It's been happening for a very long time, the inception of this country. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news for constitutionalists and everybody else, but Thomas Jefferson was a white supremacist. The very writing of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States was, based upon, I always rant about, it's like all based upon, a rough kind of revised writing of John Locke, and it's really shitty political philosophy. That's how deep and far it runs. Whenever in the inception of the country, when you had people like John Adams saying, hey, if we don't outlaw slavery right at the very beginning, the entire nation's history is going to be marred, and it was. So you can't look at any period of American history and see and pretend that this hasn't been an issue throughout. And that's how deep of an issue we need to recognize that the problem is. The thing isn't going to change just because, hey, we're just going to pass one law about, body cameras. Or we're just going to pass a resolution saying, be nice to black people, please. Whatever. All of that stuff. We need vast, deep, systemic change. And we can't wait anymore. We can't wait anymore. The time to tell people of color to wait is long past. The time to tell people of color how they should and shouldn't react and protest, it's long past. I mean, look, we already have too much documented peaceful protest that has been vilified. Vilified. I see it like, and of course, we all got on social media and everything else, and, we see like all this stuff with like Colin Kaepernick and everything, and him kneeling, and how much centrists and right-wingers were so outraged that he would kneel during the national anthem. I'll be honest, my first response to it was like, that's it? But yet here we are. It's kind of like when Black Lives Matter first came out, and I was like, wait, that's how low we're running the bar. And then people still had a fucking problem with the name Black Lives Matter, as if like that's the lowest bar they could have set, and people were upset about it. And that's the thing where it's like, you have to question your own reactions. And that's why, whenever, people talk about, like, woke culture and social justice warriors, how they hate us so much, because we're the people who have, for so long, been like, no, examine yourself, examine your own first initial reactions. And here we are. So now's when we have, so first of all, there's a lot of people who haven't understood what this is all about up until now, whenever it's in their face and they can no longer question it. And so would a lot of us be like frustrated? It's like, oh yeah, now you get it. I mean, sure, but so there's a certain amount, like, we have to be, welcome to the movement. Welcome to the resistance. I'm sorry it took you until now, but here you are, and let's get organizing. So the next thing, with regard to, again, I've said in my previous post about political violence, I'm not arming myself. I have seen calls, including from kind of more left-leaning organizations and stuff like that, that people are telling people to come to protests armed, and I'm not gonna tell people that they're wrong to do that, but I don't think that is. It's not me. And again, I believe in multi-tiered organizing. There are people who are determined that they will defend the lives of people of color as much as they can. And you know what? It's a noble impulse. I would fear that their weapon will be turned against exactly the people that they are wanting to defend. But, I mean, we don't know until it happens. It's just, usually, it's the people who are already vulnerable who will suffer. There's a lot of scariness to these demonstrations and police attacking people and everything else. That fear, that scariness of it may end up turning a lot of otherwise well-meaning white people away from participating in the protests. And I'm going to say, lean in more. Take that risk and show up. And this is where, like, a lot of people are like, oh, if you're going to protest, you have to bring this, all this, and they have these, like, big lists of equipment that you need to bring and everything else. If you can, please do. Especially if you have, like, medical training and everything else, and you have the ability to, I have a friend I actually just messaged that I wanted to let them know how proud of them I was, because of the fact that they went out with medical gear and were treating people who were hit with tear gas and pepper spray and rubber bullets and things like that, and were medically treating them. And that is like the best of all possible worlds. That is literally, you are helping the people who are being harmed. You're showing your face, you're being where you need to be, and you're helping people. That's the best of all possible worlds. It takes all kinds. You don't have to be that. If you've never been to a protest before, show up. The first step is to show up. If you've never gone to any protest before in your life, now is the time. And that's the thing. All you have to do is show up. Just show up. Just be there. Be present. Listen. Show up and listen. That's all it takes. I have this kind of theory, that, once you've broken bread with the oppressed, you can never be neutral again. Show up, be there with black people who are demonstrating. There's plenty of these protests, and the protesters are predominantly peaceful. Even when Minneapolis devolved to a riot, do you realize that the vast majority of the people were still being peaceful? That they weren't looting or anything else? That it was just people being in the street? Which brings me to, there's a few bad actors. And again, going back, white supremacist, they've already identified positively that white supremacist groups are coordinating and deliberately stoking violence, property damage, and everything else. And, you don't, all these moderates being like, oh, I'd support it if it was peaceful. Well, we have all these people condemning black people for their demonstrations, but they're not condemning the white supremacists. Elie Wiesel would say, you've taken a side. I know you have this ideology of moderateness, that you just want to be peaceful. Well, Elie Wiesel and Martin Luther King Jr. had very choice words for you. And they did not think that you were neutral. You were taking the side of the oppressor, and they were right. And they're still right. If you're still taking the side of, oh no, there's riots, that means black people are being unreasonable. Fuck you. Fuck you. In the meantime, while the destruction of property, the looting, and the violence is being stoked by extreme right-wingers, white supremacists, the president and the Department of Justice ended up declaring that it was Antifa who was responsible for all of this, and are declaring them a hate group. So first of all, Antifa isn't even an organization. It's like, there's a whole bunch of people who like kind of just declare themselves Antifa because it's anti-fascist. But I mean, right now we're actually in a fascist country, so Antifa's not the problem. Antifa's not even that organized. Let's be real. So it's, but here's the thing though. In Nazi Germany, when the burning of the Reichstag happened, it was perpetrated by the Nazis and it was blamed on the communists. And then what did they do? They rounded up all the communists, and then what happened? The Holocaust. The Holocaust is what happened because Nazis got to consolidate their power. The perpetrators got to consolidate their power by blaming their own actions on their opponents. So in declaring that Antifa was the enemy, Donald Trump, who is a representative of the federal government, so unfortunately the federal government has, maybe that's the argument that we need to give against right-wing people who aren't associated with white supremacist groups. It's like, hey, the federal government, you're right, the federal government is the enemy, look at them. I mean, this is what it is. This is what they were supposedly afraid of. And so, whenever you have stuff where, certain white people, TYT likes to kind of give this one little clip of this one white woman being like, I never thought I'd want a dictator, but if we're going to have one, I want it to be Donald J. Trump. Yeah, well, wish granted. And now you've chosen your side, and we know where you stand now. You caused this. You are the perpetrator. I'm angry. How could you not be? It's that whole thing of like, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. We've got a lot of bad stuff that's about to happen. I just saw a thing. I don't. It hasn't been verified. So Anonymous just dropped this thing. Basically directly linking Donald Trump with the Jeffrey Epstein, both trial and murder, because of the use of basically 13-year-old and 14-year-old sex slaves. I tend to believe it, but again, it hasn't been verified yet. It just came out. So maybe I shouldn't have even said anything until it is verified, but come on at this point. We need vast changes in this country. And you can't be neutral. You cannot be neutral. Elie Wiesel said, neutrality is siding with the oppressor. You cannot be neutral. Because of COVID-19, sometimes it's better if you stay at home. Right about now, I'll have to take some distance from my kids for a bit again, just to make sure that but I can't stay home. I can't not go out and demonstrate. And so ideally, I would say, especially if you're a white person, go out to these demonstrations, and your greatest job is to put your body in between police and people of color. People of color already have the targets on them. So I cannot and will not blame people of color for staying home and staying safe. I absolutely blame white people who stay home just to try to stay safe because they're scared, because you don't have a target on you, and people of color do, and it's bad. It's really bad. Lots and lots of people of color. It's not just are going to die. Look at the statistics for COVID-19 and who's actually dying. Who's dying? Look at police brutality. Who's dying? Look at these immigrant detention centers. Who's dying? Who's dying? Who's suffering? Who's in these private prisons? Who's the vast majority of people who are in the prison system right now? Who are the people who can't vote because they committed a felony at some point in their past? Who are the people who have been taken out of the political system, of the social system, of the cultural system, whether through death, prison, or fear? You can't be neutral. You cannot be neutral. Go out and protest. It is your duty. If you believe in anything about America, it is your duty to go out and protest. And it doesn't matter if oh no, but the police are tracking where you might be and they might come to your home and try to intimidate you. Not if everybody's out. Do your duty. Here I am. Here's my face. Here's my name. Here's the position I take. Come get me. No. Democracy is you stand proud to take the position that you take. That lives matter. Black lives matter. Latino lives matter. Bullshit. You stand up and you make sure that those lives matter. You make them matter. Right? And that's the thing. And here's why I say, to put your body in between yourself and a person of color is because of the fact that, number one, the police are less likely to physically attack you if you're white. And if they do, there's more likelihood that other neutral people will actually start to fucking give a shit. And this is where people are starting to wake up a little bit. Obviously, it took, a lot of it feels too little too late. But, hey, we can only start from now. We can't revise the past, shitty as it is. You have to start from now. If you've been neutral, it's time to stop being neutral. If you've been a little bit left, it's time to start going real far. I frequently end up feeling guilty that I haven't done enough. I haven't. You just do more. Just do more. Keep doing more. Remember who has the targets on them? Remember who has the targets on them. And this is why, so if you're a white person and you're thinking about setting fire to something, or if you're a white person and you're thinking about looting, or you're a white person and you're thinking, just remember, right now, right now, I mean, we we have issues with fascism and government systems and right versus left and all that stuff. There's times that I identify very strongly as an anarchist. Now is not that moment. Now is the moment of protecting black people's lives. Well, or I would say any people of color's lives in the United States. Police aren't asking if somebody's black or Latino. You know, police aren't asking what identity people have before they attack them. They're just attacking. And here's the thing. So a lot of people will end up being like, don't attack the police and all this other stuff. So I have a call to anybody who is a police officer. Because before I became unemployed, and I became unemployed intentionally, I quit my job. I was just working at Verizon doing government support, and ICE was one of our clients. And I quit because we were opening detention centers as a country, and ICE was creating concentration camps for Latin American people. And I quit my job. If I could do that, and the bar is that low for me, think about police systems and police power. And if you're not quitting your job, if you're a police officer and you aren't either quitting or writing a statement or sitting about or taking all of your vacation time or sick time or whatever right now, and you're going out there, you have chosen your side. You are the problem. You are the fascists. You are the authoritarians, and you need to be stopped. Not understood. Not maybe we'll change your mind. Fuck you. Quit. Quit today. Quit tomorrow. Get the fuck out of that stupid profession. If you believe in the idea of what police should be, you put your weapons down, you set them aside, and you start becoming a community leader. You start sitting with your community, you start talking to your community, and you start listening. You don't demand respect because you're wearing a fucking uniform. You don't demand respect because you need to show that you're in control. Fuck you. You're the last people who should be in control of anything right now. No. When the riot first happened in Minneapolis, my first response was, you know what? I think it's time to watch Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee joint from 1989. And first of all, if you haven't watched that movie, watch it now. If you are a white person and you don't understand how a riot happens, Spike Lee documented it. It's a beautiful movie. It is painful to watch at times, but it's supposed to be. Do the right thing. So, but anyway, I meant to say, in the words of the mayor, always do the right thing. Wherever you are, at any given moment in time, it is incumbent upon you to do what's right. Not the thing you can justify, not the thing that is wrong but you're mad. Do the right thing at every moment of every day. And right now, the right thing is to be out in those streets. I mean, I'm inside recording a video right now, so. But you know what I mean. It's to be out and defending humanity. And right now, the humanity that needs to be defended has dark skin. The humanity that needs to be defended are people of color. The humanity that needs to be defended are people who are fighting for democracy. Authoritarianism's here. I mean, you can't pretend that it's not anymore. You need to take a side, because not taking a side is choosing the side of the powerful. And we know, we see every video, every one of these things, you see what the powerful are doing while they still have their power. And you need to take it away from them. That's it. That's all I got today. Thanks again, and talk to you soon.